Chapter 13, Truth or Lie. The two armies separated and rested for the night, on their chariots and rides, waiting for the sunrise. The Pandavs grieved for Ghatotkacha, but Drishtadyumna and the Panchals were ever eager to get back to battle. On the other side, his mind too afflicted and restless, Duryodhan was unable to sleep. "We should not have allowed them the break," Duryodhan said to his generalissimo. "You continue to be soft on the Pandavs. They are our enemies and deserve to be crushed." "I am exerting myself to the limits," Dron said with anger and frustration in his voice. "I am an old man after all. If you really think it is so easy, by all means, you are welcome to try crushing them yourself." With the first rays of the sun, the battle began again. With Dron at the head of the Kaurav army and Arjun at the head of the Pandavs, the two exchanged arrows as the armies collided once more. Karna, Duryodhan and Shakuni attacked Arjun from three sides, but with the expert Krishna as his charioteer, he whirled around with his shield, blocking their arrows and shot back his own arrows at them. Now Krishna had no fear of Arjun's life from Karna, as they both engaged in close combat. But in that moment, there was something different in Dron's eyes, the look of a desperate man, the look of a cornered beast. He used his most dangerous splitting arrows and dart-raining shafts on the army without any provocation to such aggression. He injured soldiers by dozens with each such arrow, and the warriors accompanying him shot poisoned arrows at the remaining enemies, killing them by simply wounding. Then the Panchal and Matsya forces headed by Kings Drupad and Virat closed in. Drupad's hatred for Dron was rekindled in the past few days. Now he, together with Virat, shot arrows at Dron, and blocking them expertly, the Preceptor shot back 2 arrows and broke each of their bows. The two kings both then took up spears and hurled them at the enemy general, who simply dodged them and shot back exactly 2 arrows again. They plunged each into the neck of Drupad and Virat and killed them there instantly. "I'll kill you," screamed Drishtadyumna, seeing his father slaughtered by Dron with such ease before his very eyes. But ignoring him, Dron shot his formidable arrows at the Matsya forces, injuring and scattering them. Bhim shot arrows at Dron, but in the process of blocking the return arrows, was almost pushed off his chariot. "Well, don't just stand there," Bhim said to their generalissimo, who was still puzzled and shocked about his father. "Do what you just said." But Dron, with his array of warriors behind, had already split the Panchal troops and went through them, like slicing cheese. Supported by his son, the remaining Kaurav brothers, Kripa and Karna, Dron was able to baffle even Arjun and go past him, breaking the Pandav array. Nakul engaged against Duryodhan, Sahadev against Dushasan, and Bhim engaged with Karna, attempting to free Arjun so that the great archer can deal with Dron. With his arms slashed from the darts radiating out of Dron's special arrows, Arjun shielded his vital parts and shot back arrows at his preceptor. But he could not stand long against that formidable foe. He was seeing a side of his preceptor that he had never seen before. Even Krishna was pierced and had deep bleeding gashes at several places from the rain of Dron's weapons. With Arjun's vehicle momentarily incapacitated, Dron bypassed him and penetrated further into the Pandav army. It was clear that his motive was to kill all in his path and get to Yudhishthir to capture him. "You can't stop him like that, Arjun," Krishna said, overcoming his fatigue and taking up the reins once more. "There is no choice but to adopt some unfair means now, make Dron too shocked to falter in his efforts." Arjun's chariot rolled to Bhim and Drishtadyumna, and Krishna whispered something to them before driving Arjun along the edge of their own array, towards where Yudhishthir is. Once close to the eldest Pandav, Krishna said, "No father can bear to hear the news of their son's death. It would make them falter. Ashwatthama is too strong to be defeated, even by me, let alone be killed," Arjun said. "Dron only needs to believe that his son is dead. We just need to keep Ashwatthama out of the Preceptor's sight long enough." "No, Madhav," Arjun protested. "You ask us to lie about something like this? No, you can't ask us to do this." "You too feel so, Yudhishthir?" Krishna asked Arjun's elder brother now, who replied with a pale face. "If you say there is no other way, Madhav, we will comply, but how do I support A lie, I have vowed to be ever truthful. It won't be a lie, Krishna said, technically. Bhim went towards the elephantry of his own army and attacked one of the Malava elephants, which was oddly of the same name as Dron's son, Ashwatthama. Killing the beast, Bhim purposely began to shout out while he rode his chariot towards Dron, "Ashwatthama is killed." Hearing these words, Dron's arrows stopped and he looked back at the triumphant Bhim riding towards him while covered in someone else's blood. But the preceptor knew his son well enough to know that Bhim could not defeat him, let alone kill, so shaking the feeling off, he continued his attack. But soon more Pandav warriors started shouting out triumphantly, saying the same words that Bhim spoke. Drishtadyumna appeared on the flank of Dron, and as the two exchanged arrows while blocking the other, the Pandav generalissimo said ragefully, "Your time has come, preceptor and killer of my father." Then Dron saw before him Yudhishthir, while the preceptor's vehicle closed on the eldest Pandav. Knowing that Yudhishthir always speaks the truth, Dron asked him aloud, "Yudhishthir, is my son truly killed?" Krishna on Arjun's chariot, right beside Yudhishthir's, whispered to the questioned, "Think before you answer. If the preceptor finds out the truth, he will annihilate our entire army today." Meanwhile, Arjun and Drishtadyumna together tried to use their arrows to slow the preceptor's chariot down. "Answer me," Dron demanded again as he fought with two enemies. Yudhishthir said, shouting most of the words, "Ashwatthama, the elephant is killed." But he purposely spoke the words "the elephant" in such low tone that Dron failed to hear them in the din of the battle. All he heard was "Ashwatthama is killed." Thus Yudhishthir spoke the truth, but filtered only the lie, perhaps the biggest sin a truthful man can commit. Seeing the look of devastation on Dron's face, Arjun lowered his Gandiv and his eyes were filled with tears. He wanted to but could not speak up, fearing that it will cause them to lose everything they have achieved till now. However, Drishtadyumna continued fighting with the preceptor, but the preceptor's wrathful form had vanished now, and it was easier for the Pandav general to get the upper hand. But Dron did not turn from his duties, even after knowing that his son, for the welfare of whom he had accomplished almost everything in life, is dead. Dron broke Drishtadyumna's bow, and with only his shield and a mace, Drishtadyumna circled around on his chariot and came at Dron from the front, while blocking his direct arrows. As the two vehicles collided, the horses of the two sides intermingled and got interlocked. Unable to find a gap to hit his enemy, Dron killed the foe horses, easy within his reach. Drishtadyumna raised his mace to hit at Dron's chariot, but Dron's arrows on the mace made him drop it. He then took up his sword and, climbing over the interlocked horses, he jumped at the preceptor. Blocking the blade on his shield, Dron threw Drishtadyumna to the ground. Meanwhile, the rest of the Pandav army and Panchals kept the other warriors of the Kaurav army engaged enough to not interfere with the combat between the two generalissimos or accidentally spill the truth about Ashwatthama. Freeing his chariot from that of Drishtadyumna's, Dron went to move forward but was blocked by Bhim. "Even with your only son gone from this world, you continue to fight," Bhim shouted at his preceptor. "What kind of a father you are? What are you fighting for? You are of the priest caste and bearing arms don't suit you not anymore." With a tear rolling down his cheek, Dron now dropped his bow and shield and began weeping as he knelt down on his chariot. Hanging his head low, Dron wept and lamented inaudibly for his son. Now Drishtadyumna, with his teeth clenched in rage, desirous only to avenge his father's death, climbed on the chariot behind the preceptor. At the horror of everyone present there, friend and foe, the Pandav general pulled on Dron's grey hair with one hand, lifting his head and exposing his neck. Then with one strike of his sword, he severed the head, as blood splattered all over Drishtadyumna and the chariot he was in. One of the greatest warriors in the history, who baffled even the all-powerful Arjun, fell prey to fake news and attained martyrdom with a broken heart. Ashwatthama was engaged in a battle in the other side of the field, with Shikundi, who had been purposely sent there to keep the general's son away, for ease of spreading the fake news. He suddenly saw that the Kaurav army had scattered and were returning towards camp with haste. Shikundi also triumphantly disengaged from him and retreated. Seeing Duryodhan and Kripa coming his way on their chariots with a grieving face, he asked the king, "What's wrong? Why are we stopping? Why are we going back?" Duryodhan remained quiet at this, and Ashwatthama asked his uncle, Kripa instead, who replied, "Spreading a rumor that you have been slain, the Pandavs destroyed your father. Drishtadyumna killed him when he had laid down his weapons. We have lost the war." Even the truthful Yudhishthir spoke a half-lie today, for his own sake. After finding out everything in detail from his uncle, Ashwatthama trembled in rage as hot tears rolled down from his bloodshot eyes. He fisted his hands and clenched his jaws. "If I cannot avenge my father today, what point is there for him having a son?" Ashwatthama said. "Those liars and cowards, the Pandavs, who say they fight for of righteousness, those hypocrites, I will slay in battle." He reached deep within his chariot and pulled out a long wooden casket, and opening it, he checked within. There were at least 20 or so long arrows inside them, their shafts made of some odd type of bluish material. Seeing them, Kripa glanced at Ashwatthama with concern, but remained quiet. "That Drishtadyumna, the slayer of the holy and of his preceptor, will die," Ashwatthama said, and picked up one of the shafts. "Rally our forces. The day is not over yet." The Kaurav troops were called and ordered now by Ashwatthama, who held up his fist and shouted out to them, "Don't retreat and let the world call you cowards. Our enemy is the sinner, and it is a sin to let the sinners go. Hold your ground and fight back. I will lead you to avenge the wrongful slaying of our general." In the Pandav troops, Drishtadyumna was waving his blood-drenched sword and paced around the dead Generalissimo's chariot, triumphantly. The Panchals cheered him, happy that their king's death has been avenged, but the other soldiers stood quietly. Seeing the Kaurav forces fall into formation and turn back, Yudhishthir was concerned. "I thought Dron's death hit them hard. Why are they rallying back?" "It's Ashwatthama," Arjun responded, staring at the enemy. "He will not forgive the killer of his father, and I cannot forgive myself for not stopping this unlawful slaughter." "Don't preach and pretend to be different from us." Bhim rebuked his brother. "Didn't you too want vengeance against the Kauravs for all the atrocities done to us?" After ordering their army into a defensive formation, Drishtadyumna added to Arjun, "It doesn't suit you to judge me after you have killed your own grandfather in a helpless condition. You are my brother-in-law, and I wish no quarrel with you." Satyaki now shouted angrily at the Pandav generalissimo, "You should be ashamed. Bhishma chose his death, but this killing of Dron. Says the one who killed an unarmed Burisrava," Drishtadyumna retorted. "You will die for this," Satyaki said, and picking up a mace, ran down from his chariot towards Drishtadyumna, but was stopped by Bhim. Sahadeva now spoke out, "Please stop. Quarreling amongst us won't get us anywhere. Look, the enemy approach us. We need all our warriors on the same side." At this moment, several of the blue arrows whizzed through the air, shot from Ashwatthama's bow and also the bow of the archers in his battalion. The tips of them were on fire and left a trail of smoke in its wake. They buried themselves within the army of the Pandavs, most in the blood mud, while some pinning down warriors to the ground. Shields were raised to protect against the sparse arrows, deflecting them and making them fall down on the ground, still on sparky fire. "It's the Narayan weapon," Krishna said, with fright in his eyes. "It is capable of killing us with the entire army." At this, Yudhishthir ordered retreat, and the Pandav army without hesitation started falling back, staying clear of the fuming shafts. At this, Duryodhan, Karna and the other Kauravs started laughing triumphantly, but their army stayed at a distance. Only Bhim, on the Pandav side, held ground on his chariot and looked back threateningly at Ashwatthama, raising his bow. While turning Arjun's chariot to retreat, Krishna noticed Bhim, and leaving Arjun, he ran on foot to the second Pandav. "You can't stay here, Bhim," Krishna shouted at him, grabbing his arm and pulling. "The arrows will explode any moment. We must retreat." "I am not going to run like a coward," Bhim said angrily. "My son died with the weapon to his chest. I will do the same if necessary, but I won't run." "Your death would only benefit the enemy," Krishna said to reason with him. "You cannot fight this weapon with shield and swords. Please, brother, look, everyone else is retreating and there must be a good reason for that. Come on. Hissing with anger, Bhim ordered his charioteer to turn back and Krishna returned to Arjun, driving him away on the fast steeds. The flames at the tips of the blue arrows had climbed further above to the blue part by now like fire on a dynamite wick. Then dense blue smoke started being spewed from the shafts, and it soon covered the battlefield. The injured soldiers incapable of running screamed loudly as the gas hit them and their skin sizzled. Blisters appeared on their faces and arms and bleeding from their eyes and nostrils, they died within seconds. The smoke came after the running foot soldiers, who were the slowest in the army and got to some of them, felling them in similar manner. The Kaurav army, led by Ashwatthama, waited at a safe distance. Duryodhan gleefully said aloud, "The enemy is routed. I have never seen those Pandavs so fearful for their lives. Let us pursue them to the camp and finish this." "We can't," Ashwatthama said gloomily. "We have to wait for the smoke to clear, otherwise we will die. We need to wait till tomorrow for the field to be safe for traversing." He sighed and added, looking at the empty casket near his feet inside the chariot, "My biggest weapon has been wasted. It got none of the enemy I intended to kill."
To be continued. Stay tuned for the next chapter.